Dr. Bensong risked everything when he used the quantum leap accelerator to travel back in time. Now our team's working to find out why. As he leaps between bodies with no memory of who he is, he still has one hope. That his next leap takes him back to the...
Welcome back, everyone. This is Dave from Cormor Productions with my co-host Stacie, here to talk about the new Quantum Leap Revival, Season 1, Episode 18, Judgment Day. The season finale of Season 1. The episode's description reads as follows. Ben and Leaper X both leap into 2018 and try to set right what once went wrong. The episode was written by Margarita Matthews. This is her third episode written for the series, though she has served as story editor on all but one of the episodes, and that would be the pilot episode. The episode was directed by Chris Grismer. This is his fourth episode of the series, the last of which was SOS. He's also a producer on the series. Before going any further, I'll tell you a couple of things. One, this is not a spoiler-free podcast, so if you haven't watched the episode, I highly recommend you go and check it out, and then come back and give us a listen. Secondly, if you're listening on one of the platforms that this podcast is now available on, please follow, and feel free to check out my YouTube channel, Cormor Productions, where additional content can be discovered, both Quantum Leap related and otherwise. If you're already on my YouTube channel, please like, share, and comment, and please subscribe to my channel. Shout out this week goes to William Daniels, who played Mr. Feeney on Boys Meets World. He just turned 96 on March 31st. He looks better than I will at 96. Most likely because I'm going to be dead at 96. I will not see 96. Kelly says that the word we were looking for last week was commendation, not accommodation. It's like,
see, I knew that didn't sound.
Yeah. Yeah, basically, when they say you received a commendation. A is a separate word from commendation. So, thanks for that, Kelly, as usual. Ashley Wright says that the IRA that we talked about in last week's episode are a bunch of people mainly set up in the Republic of Ireland who want there to be one Ireland after they were split up by the British by any means necessary. Basically, they are a terrorist organization, though one man's terrorist is another man's freedom fighter. Stacie, your thoughts on this week's episode?
Well, there's a lot to unpack here, right?
Absolutely.
And so we both changed our normal viewing habits for this one. We actually watched the episode live together.
Yes, and this is the first time that I've actually watched this series live.
So we watched it live together and participated in a watch party last night.
With Fate's Wide Wheel.
Yeah, that was fun. And we were up till about 1 a.m. in their chat. And then we rewatched the episode this morning and took notes. Now, usually I take notes during my first watch through, pausing. And then if I get a chance to rewatch it before we meet, I do. So I did this completely backwards this time, taking the notes the second time. So I feel like maybe I missed some of, catching my initial thoughts by doing it this way compared to how I usually do. But this episode, it makes sense that we did this differently because it's a very different episode, right? Instead of having here's our leap story and here's our project story, they're all one and the same. And we're kind of bouncing all over the place. There's a lot of great things here. I loved some of the concepts. Particularly, we got to revisit some old leaps. We got to see multiple versions of all of our main characters. Well, most of them. I guess all of them in one point or another. But in the same respect, I feel like there was almost too much going on.
Yeah, absolutely.
This could have absolutely been a 2-hour episode without adding any real content to it. This was definitely...
just slowed things down.
This was definitely a blink and you miss it. Literally every second was jam-packed, both visually and audibly, between all of the different... Because we have twice as many characters when we're looking at them in multiple time periods. So it was busy. It was a busy episode. I still have some questions, and I don't know if it's just me or if it didn't fulfill the explaining everything promise.
Yeah, I'm not so sure about that. Our concern, your concern that you brought up a couple of times is that the general public is not going to understand
I was concerned about if this was too big of a story, people are going to have a hard time following it.
And since I have a hard time with that, I think that concern is warranted. Thankfully, I have what most of those people don't have, in that I have you to explain things to me.
Yeah, but if I'm confused...
I think there are even things that you don't understand. So, yeah, hopefully... This is probably going to end up being a long podcast. I have like 11 pages of notes. I generally have between 5 to 7. And these are not even like fleshed out notes. This is like just the bare minimum describing the plot notes that I have here, with a couple of things thrown in here. So, yeah, there's a lot of great things about this episode, but there's a lot of confusing things for sure. I think it would take 5 viewings to fully understand this episode, and I think it should have been definitely a 2-hour finale.
I wonder if maybe it'll all make more sense when we go back and watch the whole season again.
It might.
And see all of the things from the perspective we have now.
Yeah, so let's dive into this thing. Ben ends up leaping into the destroyed Quantum Leap project, which we saw last week's episode. We see snow, which Ben marvels that it's snow in LA. We still don't know how he knows that it's LA, but you said last week that he recognizes his surroundings somehow.
He must recognize that this is the project. That's the only explanation I have for that.
Ben ends up encountering a much older Ian, because this is the year 2051. That's been given to us somewhere. I read it somewhere.
It popped up in like on the screen. It said 2051.
We never find out who Ben leaped into.
No, and that bothers me. So we spent all this time debating who is he going to be in this leap, right?
Yeah.
And the answer is basically, Ian says, I had a hard time finding someone for you to leap into.
It's in the apocalypse.
It's a random nobody, but we didn't even get a mirror image. And I really wish we had at least gotten that. Just show us this person, whoever they are. We don't have to explain to us in full detail who they are, but I feel like by not showing us at all, it was kind of a letdown after the whole debate of who are they. Basically
some homeless random nobody that Ian found to hang around, probably on the promise of food. I mean, that would probably get me to stick around under these crazy circumstances.
Right. So yeah, it's nuclear winter. Sounds like the world's pretty bad out there. Ian confirmed there's a war, among other things, going on outside.
Right.
So we don't know all of the details, but it's a bad place right now.
And I would assume that they're not totally done with this aspect of the story.
No, because they didn't really explain how exactly we got here. We get explanation of, what the government blames the project, which, we get into that. But they didn't really say, well, did the project actually cause this?
Right.
Did just sucky humanity cause this? I mean, they said that the project is a scapegoat, so I'm thinking the project honestly had nothing to do with it. So that means we haven't averted this crisis. This still is looming out there. And I feel like that's something we're going to keep coming back to throughout the series.
Well, I hope so, because it's only 30 more years, and, well, let's see. No, I could still be alive, but...
Your daughter definitely will be.
Yes, she definitely will be, unless something bad happens, but we won't go there anyway. In the 2023, the project finds Ben, and then they lose him again because the Quantum Leap accelerator was not designed for finding him in the future. Right.
When we last left them, they had no trace of him. Ian gets a signature. 2023, Ian, that is. I'm going to throw in lots of dates out during this one.
Right.
Yeah, they kept losing the signature, and Janice is there. So last time we saw her, she was carted back to Beth's house. But when we open in this scene, Janice is already there. So they've pulled her in since Ben last left.
And I must say that the entire 2023 crew looks completely different from their last versions. I mean, other than Magic, they're like, they look...
Magic never looks different.
Yeah, Magic is basically the same in any time frame.
I mean, I appreciate they went out of their way to differentiate between the timelines in this episode.
I mean, that's absolutely why they did it.
Yeah, they wanted to over-accentuate their looks so that we could tell them apart. And it still was challenging at times because I'm looking down and I hear a voice and I'm like, well... I know whose voice that was, but when was that voice?
Right. This episode was confusing enough, so the visual contrast was very much appreciated.
Yeah. So Janice is there, and, she immediately recognizes the reason that they're having a hard time holding this signature is because Ben's in the future, which I feel like I think we said this last week, but didn't they know that all along he was going to the future? Like, that was told to us in, like, episode 2 or 3. So, yeah, he's in the future. Like, we should have been ready for this.
Right. In the future, Ben keeps almost leaping away because the accelerator keeps trying to pull him back.
Yeah, so
and we end up attributing a lot to the quantum accelerator.
Yeah, we're told in this that the accelerator basically is sentient. As opposed to, we have this AI, Ziggy. Ziggy's offline still. It's the accelerator we're talking about here as a completely separate entity from Ziggy. And they're basically equating the accelerator in place of the term, we would always hear God, fate, time, whatever.
And I'm honestly not sure how I feel about that.
They keep saying the accelerator, like the machine itself is doing it. Or is it who's controlling the machine? What's controlling the machine?
Yeah, I don't know how I feel about them basically attributing everything to the quantum accelerator.
Yeah, but they're saying it's the accelerator trying to pull him back because you're not supposed to leap to the future. This is this is wrong. Can't do it. It's trying to pull him away.
Ian is the only quantum leap survivor in this timeline. Though I wonder where Sam Beckett is during this. Is he still leaping around in time or what? But anyway.
Well, honestly, 2051, he'd have been 98 years old, so.
Yeah, so he would be, he'd look like William Daniels at this point. 2023, Addison asked Janice, what is he doing? And Addison doesn't know. She didn't know that Ben was going to make a pit stop in the future, so Ben apparently left that part of the plan out.
But we knew that, though.
Right. We were told that
it was
the whole
in the
thing...
coordinates. See, that's why it's like, well, who wrote these coordinates? Like the original program. Like, wasn't Janice heavily involved in that? Yeah,
I'm assuming that Ian wrote a lot of it, but since she was heavily involved with the plan, why doesn't she know that the goal was to get to the future at some point? I'm a little confused on that. Didn't know... Oh, yeah, okay. So, future Ian tells Ben that the government blames Quantum Leap for the collapse of society, which we covered. They think Quantum Leap has changed things for the worse. So they recruited Martinez to undo it all. Now, my question was, why didn't he go so far as to undo Sam Beckett's Quantum Leap?
Right.
And,
why?
Of course, the practical reason is because
we want to get rid of... Stop Quantum Leap. Why would you go to 2018? Why wouldn't you go to...
the original
1995
project and stop that completely.
Right.
The practical reason is because there's no way to actually do that, as you pointed out, because you can't film a much younger...
Wouldn't it have been fun if we went to the Gummy Bear set?
And tried to see it?
Yeah. Even if we're only there for a minute, because, we can't interact with those actors.
Right.
But wouldn't it be fun to have gone there?
It would have been
Maybe
fun.
Just see Martinez go there and fail and leap again.
That would have been fun, for sure. Okay, after Ian left, the government... Well, after Ian went to the past, left into the past, into Shakina's character... Dottie. When Ian came back, the government destroyed the project so that they
destroyed the accelerator
specifically, yes.
Yeah.
Ian shows Ben a code that Ian describes as a cheat code. Ian demands Ben memorize it before leaping so he can give it to Ian in the past. Okay, so Bates Wide Wheel warned on Twitter that while this episode was a fun adventure, if you were expecting it to make sense, you were going to be disappointed. And yeah, I kind of basically agree with that. They also mentioned that what they were hoping for in the future scenes was like a Back to the Future 2 reference with, like a Doc Brown writing.
Yeah, that's what I was
writing
expecting.
On the board.
Like we saw this whiteboard in the promo photos.
Like basically writing out the timeline and explaining events that way. And I'm kind of disappointed myself that we didn't get that.
With those promo photos, I feel like it was really deceptive. I thought we were going to spend more time in 2051. We were there for 2 minutes? And basically. I thought they were going to be working on this board together, but no, it was really quick. Here's the board, memorize it. It's a good thing Ben has a photographic memory. And it's a good thing Swiss Cheese didn't steal any of that.
Right. So Ian, before Ben ends up leaping, says that they need each other. And then Ben leaps.
Yeah. And 2023 Ian says Ben has really pissed off the accelerator because the accelerator's pulling him. And again, that's giving this accelerator a lot of credit here.
Right. It's basically a personification of the accelerator. 2023, Janice says that, and there's only one 2023, there's only one Janice.
There's only one Janice, yes.
So I don't need to differentiate where she's from.
So where was Janice in 2018, do you think?
I don't know. Hanging out with her dad?
fighting about trying to get into the project?
Maybe. It's quite possible.
You know what I just realized?
What's that?
At the very end of the episode, and the last time we see Addison before their last big moment was, she said something about, do you have the new applicant file? And she has a personnel file in her hand. I wonder if it's Janice.
Maybe. Okay, so yeah, she says that he has one more leap, and it's not so much where, but when.
But when? And why couldn't she have told us this 3 leaps ago?
Right. No, yeah. Yeah, there's a lot of information that Janice provides at really inconvenient times where it would have been really good to have that information before. But we've talked about that. It's because she doesn't trust them. By this point, though, I figure that she had basically earned their trust. But I guess not. Ben leaps into the project 2018. The 2023 crew sees themselves and are shocked. Ben wanted to leap back to that moment that Martinez was going to kill Addison.
Well, to that day.
To that day, yes. And I'm not sure why Martinez is picking that day to go back there to kill Addison. I mean, he could have picked any time.
Right, and you and I talked about this off air, I'm really confused by Martinez's leaps.
Mm-hmm.
We finally learned in this what his overall goal is, but what's with all these pit stop leaps?
Mm-hmm.
Why didn't he just target himself? Why didn't they target him to where they wanted him to go?
Mm.
I'm confused. Like, we know Ben was following Martinez. That's why Ben was on this journey and had to do this whole slingshot thing to get to the future, to get the code and all of this. But what's Martinez doing?
Yeah, we don't... I mean, like... Yeah, so Ben ends up following Martinez through these leaps, but why was he there in the first place?
Right, why did Martinez go to all of these stops?
Right. Unless, like, he got sidetracked and lost somehow. I have no idea, honestly.
And also, we still don't have any explanation of how is Martinez getting updated information from Ziggy.
Mm-hmm.
If Martinez is using Ziggy to get up-to-date information as they're changing it, as the leaps are happening, he either needs a hologram or he needs to be going back home between leaps. And neither of those were told to us.
Right.
I thought we'd get some explanation on that in this episode, and we didn't.
No, we didn't get explanations for a lot of things that we were hoping to get explanations on. Okay, so Pastine is complaining about magic failing on trivia night.
Yes.
And, by the way, we might soon have trivia nights of our own related to Quantum Leap, but we'll get into that later. I just figured that since we're bringing it up, I might as well bring it up.
Yeah, we're gonna have Quantum Leap trivia. We're gonna do it locally here between me, you, and Adam, and we're gonna try and organize a game with the viewers to join us online for some trivia. So we're gonna keep you guys updated once we get that figured out.
Yes, we don't currently have any details on that, but we will get some later at some point. Okay, so Ben needed Janice's help to program things for this day and for this specific host, and he's leaped into himself, which means that although I sort of backed off that idea when we were talking about in the last episode, I was right about Ben leaping into himself.
Yeah, in 2018 though, not in the future.
So you and Kelly were both right on that because you both agreed with each other on Ben going to the past. I didn't understand why. I still kind of don't understand why Martinez picks this moment, but that's what we're going with here.
Yeah.
Okay, so after the credits, Addison of 2023 talks to Ben and asks how the future was. Ben writes down the code for Ian to see in 2023 and repeats the last thing future Ian said to himself. Or rather, Ian said to, Ben. He said, we need each other. 2023 Ian and Addison argue about the code. Ian doesn't know what it is about because they wrote it about 30 years in the future. So they have no idea what it actually does. Mm-hmm. Ian warns Addison to tell Ben not to change anything in the past because they could create a paradox or make it so that Addison and Ben never fall in love.
Yeah.
Addison was aware, or rather Janice was aware of these risks, and Addison angrily asks, why did you leap here in this manner if these were the risks involved? Right,
and Janice basically says, well, Ben understood the risks. He was pretty confident he'd be able to not change anything. Here's my question. Obviously, you got to change something if you're trying to prevent something from happening. Right. So what's your goal in not changing anything?
Right.
If you don't change anything, Addison's going to die. So you got to figure out where you have to change something.
Right.
Also, in this 2018 scene, we found out that the reason Magic was skipping out on trivia is he's going to see Al.
Oh, that's right. I forgot to mention that.
Yeah. And
Jen ends up giving him cigars.
Jen gives Al the cigars. Or Jen gives Magic the cigars to give to Al. And so we got this mention of Al. Al's still alive because they kept, with Dean Stockwell's timeline. Dean died in 2021.
Mm-hmm.
So in 2018, Al's still alive. That's pretty awesome to think about, that he's there, we get this impression here, they all know about Al, they're all friendly with Al. I'm a little confused by that, because I recall at the end of the pilot episode, when we first hear Al mentioned, it was Magic, and I believe he was talking to Jen. I could be wrong.
You're right.
He was talking to Jen, and they were looking at the security photos of Janice, and they identified the ring, because they didn't see her face, but they saw the ring, and figured out who it was, that was Al's ring, and then this must be Janice. And I definitely recall getting the impression that Jen didn't know the name Al Calavici when Magic was explaining this. And this directly contradicts that, because here we are, Jen knows Al well enough to have bought him cigars.
Right. I am going to watch that episode again before we do next week's look back at season 1. So I'll get clarification on whether that is true or not. My memory is a little fuzzy.
I mean, definitely I know they were introducing, like when they talked about Sam, and here they started talking about Al. And this is when they introduced all of us to Janice. And, for new viewers, this is them saying, hey, here's who Al is and here's who Sam is.
Well,
for people who didn't watch the original series.
During the Fates Wide Wheel watch party, there was a person on there that hadn't actually watched the original series at all.
Yeah.
So it doesn't actually get these references. So these people exist, like that
absolutely
have not seen the original series.
And I get that the show
one.
is going to cater to them, but I do feel like it made a contradiction here.
Mm-hmm. It sounds like it.
Ben goes out and Addison's there, 2018 Addison. You realize this is the first time since Ben's known about Addison, they got to physically touch.
That's right.
Now, it's not his Addison, but he's physically in the room with Addison, and you can just tell he lights up. Like, this is a great moment for him. Because the last time they were physically in a room together was in the pilot during their engagement party.
Right.
And then since he's remembered her, remember he didn't know who she was for a few leaps. Since he's remembered her, that's all he's wanted, was to be in the room with her. And unfortunately, this Addison doesn't know any of that. They barely know each other here. They're just coworkers, and they're about to go on their first date.
Yes. So the reason that Janice ends up giving the motivations for why Ben chose to do this is that Ben needed to leap into someone that Addison trusted, which in this case was Addison herself. Ben is working around, before we get into the whole Addison beating up thing, Ben is working around like he's a spy.
Yeah.
It's really weird. Like, why is he just like sneaking around his own project instead of like just like, assimilating and
I think he was just trying to understand the context of what was happening before he jumped into the conversation.
And Ian at this point is suggesting that Ben replace Magic for trivia. I'm not sure why Magic was in there over Ben in the first place.
No, I'm pretty sure that all 5 of them go to trivia usually. The impression I got is all of them go to trivia every week because remember Ian was talking about this on the airplane about their trivia team in the Federal Employee League or whatever, which seems really weird that that's a thing. And I remember them saying something like, oh, this person's best at this topic and this person's best at that topic. So I think it's not the fact that they're trying to get Magic to replace Ben. I think they're upset that Magic cut out. They're upset that Ben and Addison are cutting out. So now it's just Ian and Jen going to trivia.
Oh, okay.
And I think it was supposed to be all 5 of them.
Gotcha. So, as you said before, Ben ends up running into 2018 Addison, and Ian somehow realizes that they are going to go out on a date.
Yeah, and, 2023 Addison noticed as well. She was like, oh, wait, look at what I'm wearing.
Right.
This is the night of our first date.
Ah.
And this kind of scared her because, she was told, oh, make sure Ben doesn't change anything. And I think she's realizing now, like, oh, this is this is a big moment for us.
Right.
And this is a bad time for us to be interfering.
2023 Addison harasses Ben about keeping it together with 2018 Addison as he's stammering and nervous because their date needs to go well. 2018 Addison leaves, and Ben declares that they can't go on the date to...
Did you just say 13?
What? Did I?
I think you did.
Okay, there's no 2013, 2018, and 2023 Addison. Anyway, I'm sure I'll do that a lot because, yeah.
This is one of those. Like, I found myself writing the wrong numbers in my notes when the numbers are, like, the only thing to make the notes make sense.
Yeah, okay, so Ben thinks that they can't go on this date because if they just stick to the original history, Martinez will find them easier.
Right, Martinez knows about their first date.
Mm-hmm.
So, why didn't they just go to a different restaurant?
They could have.
But Addison is so strict on we have to do everything exactly the same.
Right. Addison says if they don't stick to the history, they have no idea what will happen in the future. They might never fall in love. And she ends up winning this argument. Ben is on a date. We think this is a Chinese restaurant. Actually, later this is confirmed during a lucky pause.
Yeah,
the restaurant's name is actually called Dragon.
Dragon. And we were told this. I'm pretty sure we were told about this date. I don't know what episode, but I know they talked about their first date eating Chinese food together.
Yeah, I know that we talked a little bit about that in Ben Interrupted. And I'm sure there's some other times that we also talked about that as well. At 2023, Addison is overseeing the date with 2018 version.
Yeah, and she's trying to nitpick this to make sure nothing changes. I think she's taking that task a little too seriously.
To the point where 2018 version suggests like eating scallion pancakes or something like that. And the 2023 version of her is quick to overrule that, saying, no, you guys ate egg rolls.
Right.
And despite the fact that Ben goes along with this initially, what 2018 version just said, basically changes his mind when Addison says something and ends up suggesting the egg rolls.
Yeah, so on the one note, Addison is very, very, like, you have to do exactly the same. You were nervous, so it's okay that you're nervous. You have to order the same thing you ordered. You have to do every word exactly the same. But in doing this, she's making it more awkward.
Yeah,
like,
if I had
the impression this is not going well.
If I were on a date, and I had a future version of that person sitting next to me nitpicking everything I'm doing, that would make it even more nerve-wracking for me.
Now, I think Addison forgot what we learned in SOS, which is small changes are not going to affect your future.
And they even bring that up in this episode.
I don't think they would have broken the timeline if he didn't order egg rolls. I don't think that would have done it.
Well, you never know. Not ordering the egg rolls could have resulted in a paradox which would have destroyed the entire universe. Anyway. Okay, so... Oh yeah, Ben ends up talking to 2023 Addison, the Addison version, the 2023 version of Addison, and he ends up confusing the 2018 version, but he covers himself for a bit here and does so okay. 2018, Addison tells Ben that she knows Ben asked Ian to run probability scenarios on whether they should go on a date or not with Ziggy. She finds this sweet because of her own tendency to leap into relationships in a super fast way.
Instead of this being super creepy, which she probably should have thought it was, she thought it was a wise decision to get Ziggy involved in letting them know if they should date or not.
Yeah, I mean, I would do that with all my dates if I could.
So
for sure.
2018 Addison tells Ben, I like you. And he says...
Ben almost pretty much confesses that he loves her.
He was like, I like you. And she raised her eyebrows at that. I don't blame her.
2023, Ian marvels at the code that their future self wrote.
Yeah, the code that they just got. Ben wrote it in 2018. Addison kind of like screen grabbed the notebook and gave it to Ian. And Ian seems really stressed over this. I don't think that they understand a word of it at this point.
Right. Ian says that maybe they were writing this on a park bench wearing a trench coat. Was he also flashing people at the same time? Janice says that she thinks if the 2018 version of them could see them now, they would be proud. and that they should give themselves more credit. As if this episode isn't confusing enough, I have to deal with these pronouns as well.
Okay, dealing with pronouns and time travel
at the same time
is a hard sentence to swallow.
Yes. In 2018, Ian was a mess. They had just broken up with Rachel, and that was one of the reasons why they were so obsessed with trivia night. Right,
it was the only thing they had, and so Ian says, I was obsessed with trivia. I was dealing with this breakup, and I was spending every night playing Dark Souls, which is a video game. Now, Dark Souls was released in 2011. And by this point in 2018, actually, Dark Souls 3 was already out. That was released in 2016. So I'm curious if they're referring to the whole franchise rather than just the original game. I find it hard to believe that Ian, who's like super intelligent, wasn't able to beat the original game in 7 years. But yeah, it's something that they came to me. We're talking about Dark Souls, and I mean, I've seen this game, the gameplay of Dark Souls, and what I remember about this game is it's not pretty to look at. It's a very dark, drab game. And honestly, it's a great comparison to the 2051 timeline where Ian is living alone.
Oh, okay.
It's that same color scheme. Everything is gray. And your player is all alone except for, like skeleton creatures and stuff.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So there's is that perhaps one of the reasons why they included Dark Souls as the game that they keep bringing up?
Yeah, maybe. It feels like it's a good comparison for the where Ian ends up, you know.
All right. Well, Ian gets the alarm that Martinez has arrived, and it takes him a really long time to realize exactly who Martinez has leaped into.
Yeah, they know Martinez is in 2018, and they're able to physically track Martinez's signature is all the way across town, so they don't got to worry about that, right?
Right. 2023 Addison tells Ben about this and tells him not to panic, to finish the date.
Yeah, well, Ben wasn't gonna...
Yeah.
Ben, of course, isn't going to sit by and do nothing. Like, you're here to save Addison's life. The person who's going to kill Addison is approaching.
Ironically, the one time that Ben stays on mission is the one time that Addison doesn't want him to stay on mission.
Right.
Addison seems to notice Ben's attitude and asks if everything is okay. He says no, despite orders from Addison to basically say yes. Ben says they have to go.
Yeah, he pulls 2018 Addison out of the date. We're out in the parking lot.
2023 Ian asks what Ben is doing. They are supposed to be sticking to the original history. Ben argues with 2023 Addison in front of a confused 2018 Addison, saying that he is doing this to protect her from Martinez. 2023 Addison says that there's more going on than just that, i.e. their love.
Yeah, and he goes, our love is stronger than this. To which 2018 Addison goes, huh?
And so Ben ends up just straight up telling 2018 Addison that he is a time traveler from the future there to save her. In response, 2018 Addison laughs, saying that that's literally the plot of Terminator.
Yeah. And
asks if they can go back to dinner. 2023 Addison says, yes, go back to dinner. 2008, Ben ends up saying no. And he continues to argue his case for not doing that. 2023 Addison says that the date is officially not going well. I think that train left the station a while ago.
Yeah, it did.
2018 Addison starts to take him seriously, but says she needs time to process all of that.
She realized he's not giving it up. If it was a joke, he'd have, gotten to the punchline.
Right.
But and let me say, this was a great scene.
Yeah, it was fun.
I
was laughing.
The acting
literally
on this was amazing. I wonder how many times they had to shoot this to get her, to do both of these roles.
Yeah.
And there's great editing to put it all together.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
It was a seamless scene. You would never know that, you know, there's not two different Addisons in the room.
They've come a long way with this technology and being able to show like duplicates of yourself in the same room, for sure.
But usually you get a lot of, you know, cutting back and forth, back and ahead stuff. And this, it felt like just one camera. It really did.
Yeah.
And Caitlin did amazing. Being able to pull off two totally different versions of herself.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
It was great.
There's a lot of fans that criticize Caitlin for her acting. I don't agree.
No, I think she's really gotten a lot stronger as the season goes on, and she's gotten more confident in this role.
I mean, that's generally how series go. Like,
right.
As you go get into your, you know, character more, you grow into it.
And you learn who your character is. You tend to create your character.
Yeah, you tend to get more comfortable in the role and do a better job.
Remember, this is her first, like, role.
Right. This is her first acting gig, as I recall, when I looked into her Internet Movie Database page. So, yeah, Ben ends up not giving her the time to, you know, process anything and ends up dragging her away. 2023 Magic asks, how much damage did Ben just do? Ian doesn't know, but thinks telling someone you're a time traveler is on the no-no list of things to do to avoid a paradox.
Yeah.
Ian goes to work on the code before he gets erased from existence.
And I'm a little confused by that part. Everyone keeps saying, oh, we're going to erase people from existence. I mean, I can see you erasing them from working on the project, but how are you going to erase something that happened prior to this moment in history?
Yeah, I don't think he actually means...
But they keep saying that throughout the episode. Like...
I think they mean the current versions of themselves.
Yeah, right. But, I don't know. I feel like they are taking the whole, like... the repercussions of this to an extreme. Like, I don't think you're literally risking the universe, you know, which we imply that, like, the world's going to blow up if you get this wrong. No, you're just not going to have quantum leap.
I mean, better safe than sorry. Magic asks Janice why they haven't built the changes in history just yet.
Right.
And Janice says because they have never messed directly with their own history. Till Ben finishes the leap, everything is in flux. And she ends up calling this phenomenon after... Magic ends up getting several wrong guesses. The quantum bubble. Yeah,
they're in a quantum bubble. So until Ben finishes the leap and leaps again, they don't know exactly what's going to happen. And we kind of did see this straight along in the original series. Like, oh, there's this percentage of this happens, but there's still a chance that that happens.
Right.
So until you can, like, 100% confirm this is how it's going to go, the change hasn't really happened yet.
Right.
So yeah, this would have been a lot more confusing if they're getting live memories of the changes. That would have been a mess.
Yes.
To pull together.
I'm glad they did not go in that direction. That's for sure.
Explaining that there's a reason we don't know what happens fits. And just using the word flux, by the way.
Yes.
Felt like another Back to the Future nod.
I think there were at least a couple of them.
Yeah, they were more subtle this time.
Janice thinks the best case scenario, Addison and Ben don't end up together.
Yeah, that's best case.
Yes. Worst case scenario, Ben rips a hole in the space-time, killing everything and everyone that ever was. Well, gee, that sounds pretty bad.
Yeah.
If you and I blink out of existence and get torn apart because of a paradox, well, it was nice knowing you, Stacie.
Janice seems very pessimistic about this whole thing.
And that fits her character. She generally seems pretty pessimistic.
Remember, she was raised by Al.
Right.
The whole conspiracy theorist. Yeah, it makes sense that she'd have some cryptic views about how the world works.
They figured out where Martinez is going, but not yet who he is. And I don't know how they don't know who he's left into at this point.
And I think it was mostly just to keep the audience guessing.
Right.
And we were, at this point, saying, okay, wait, what exactly is going on with Martinez?
Ben ends up sending Addison home, and Ben runs to the project instead of, I don't know, like, there should have been, I don't know, there could have been, like, another way to get to the project.
Yeah, so he gave Addison his car, because he drove them here, and said, go home, lock yourself up, arm yourself, and don't leave the apartment. I wonder, is Addison living in the apartment they live in together now?
I don't think so, not in 2018. They just started going on their first date. They wouldn't even.
No, what I'm saying, was that her apartment already, and he moved in with her, or?
Not sure, to be honest with you. I was under the impression that it was her apartment, or maybe when they got together.
We haven't seen that apartment in a while. Remember in the beginning, we used to get, like,
Little
Those
glimpses.
establishing shots all the time of the pier.
Mm-hmm.
And that stopped at some point.
Yes. Maybe they felt like we didn't need them anymore. 2018, Addison calls Magic and asks if Al liked the cigars.
Yeah, and we got the response good, insinuating
that
Magic said
yes.
it went well.
And then she proceeds to tell Magic what's going on.
Everything that Ben said.
Right.
Which, that makes sense. He's their boss.
Mm-hmm. Ben is back at the project. Hologram Addison says that they are way off the original timeline. Ben says that the only thing matters is Addison being safe.
Yeah, and Ben does like a hand scan into the building, and he's like, I'm so glad to be in my own body.
I'm sure after a while of leaping in other people's bodies, this feels pretty good.
Yeah, now, and he's also really convinced her here. He says that Martinez is going to have a hard time getting into headquarters. He's like, we're good. Now, honestly, if you thought Martinez couldn't get in this building, why didn't you take Addison back here?
Mm-hmm. Right.
Why didn't you stay with her if you're trying to protect her? Wouldn't it be safer than just telling her to lock yourself up?
Right.
He seemed pretty confident that he solved the whole thing just by telling her to go home.
Right.
And he's like, bye, I'll see you in the future.
Couldn't get information about where Addison was going at this point. Martinez can just look it up and say, oh,
Yeah.
okay.
But also, I don't know, he's so convinced Martinez isn't going to get in the building. Do you not think Martinez has a plan here?
Right. Yeah, I don't think Ben thought this one through. 2018 Addison gathers her weapons. Ben and 2023 Addison are in the elevator, and Ben thinks that their romance is written in the stars.
Yeah, he gives her this whole speech about, you know what? It doesn't matter that the date went bad. You and me were meant to be together. Nothing could ever, come between us.
They can survive one bad date. The elevator opens to reveal 2018 Addison holding a gun on Ben. Now, I gotta tell you, I've had some bad dates in my time, but none of them have ever ended with a gun being pointed at me.
No.
So I think this is a pretty bad sign.
It's not great. Yeah,
No.
the outcome, what does Magic 8 Ball say?
Outlook, not so good.
There you go.
2018 Addison, after talking to Magic, okay. So, yeah, basically she's decided that, okay, maybe it's possible that there's a person out to kill me. Maybe that's you, and I'm...
Right, so...
This is a logic gap here, though.
We get here that Magic must have convinced her after hearing the story that, we can't trust Ben.
Right. Even though Ben is the one that said this in the first place and sent her home, and if Ben really wanted to kill her, why wouldn't he just do it there?
Yeah, and at this point, I figured out what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
They still haven't.
Right. So you're kind of ahead of them at this point. Ben tells 2018 Addison that she knows him, but the 2023 Addison says no, she doesn't. At this point, he is just a coworker, and right now he's acting like a crazy coworker at that. 2018 Addison realizes Ben's got a hologram and doesn't believe him when he says it's her.
Yeah.
They could have easily resolved this by having Addison of 2023 say
Right.
something that Ben wouldn't
Right.
know at this point.
Tell Ben to say something that's going to convince Addison.
But they don't even attempt to do that at all.
They don't, no.
Addison doesn't believe him and saying she was supposed to be the time traveler. Ben reveals that he screwed that all up. Ben brings up the law of entanglement.
Yeah. And
2023 Addison is not impressed.
her response, she's just like, oh my God, like, really, this again? And it was really humorous. It was a great callback to the pilot. This was his speech at the engagement party, and she rolled her eyes then at it. So she knows this isn't going to work.
Right.
To convince Addison to trust you.
And the law of entanglement, again, is when two particles experience a shared state, they no longer exist as a separate entity. They exist as one. And this actually comes up later in the episode.
And I don't understand it.
Yes,
I
didn't understand it.
I understand that that's what they're trying to say about it.
Hologram Addison tells Ben that Addison is going to shoot him. Ben is confident that she won't, and starts to push the gun away. It goes off and kills a fire hydrant.
Fire extinguisher.
Oh, my bad. Ben runs, and Ben says Addison missed on purpose. 2018 Jen initiates a lockdown. 2023 Jen realizes that they are all going to be trapped in the building with an assassin.
Yeah, because Martinez, they've now tracked him. He's in the building.
Mm-hmm.
They still don't know who he is, but they know he's in the building
they really
prior to the lockdown. And Jen takes this personal.
Right. She ends up recalling Addison, and then herself she goes into the imaging chamber saying that Ben doesn't have a chance against herself.
Right. So she's now 2023 Ben's going to help 2023 Jen is going to help Ben get past 2018 Jen's security plan. And Jen really seems to enjoy this challenge.
Oh, she does.
She, like, who better to, go up against his opponent than yourself, right? So she's loving every second of this.
She assists Ben by telling Ben to hide behind some boxes, which in 2018 she yelled at a delivery guy that day for blocking the security cameras. Jen excitedly says that her past self is going to be so pissed.
And we see that in the very next scene.
Right.
2018 Jen is so upset. And let me say, out of all the characters, look how much Jen has changed in 5 years.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I don't know if I would have recognized her if I saw this 2018 Jen. She
has like this ponytail
looks like
thing.
An entirely different role.
Right.
So Jen grew up a lot in 5 years. I mean, Ian looks a lot different as well, but that's Ian. Ian always looks different. That's their nature. They change their style.
Scene.
Right. But with Jen, it really kind of shocked me that the stark differences between Jen's appearance in these two times.
2018 Addison tells Jen that Ben doesn't seem like himself. He's more competent and more impulsive.
Yeah.
And we still have never actually met the pre-leap Ben, other than that scene in the
engagement
party. Pilot, the
right.
engagement party.
So here's the thing: he's not himself.
Right.
Right. He's himself, but he's changed a lot. Not only do we have 5 years of growth, we then have all of the leaping, which we know that changes you. That's something we've discussed a lot. If you're not going to grow from leaping.
Right.
But I think here she's using it to convince herself that this isn't Ben at all. This is the mysterious killer that's leaped into Ben.
2023 Jen tells Ben that Martinez is headed to Magic's office, and yet they still don't know who this guy is. Jen ends up choking up with emotion, telling Ben to be careful. Ben said, she says that she doesn't usually get emotional because she's used to putting up walls, and Ben's like, well, that's why you're a great security chief, and she ends up kind of like lapping through her tears. It's great acting from...
Yeah, and this is definitely more emotion than we're used to seeing from Jen.
And so they end up parting ways. They really shouldn't. Like, there should still be a hologram here.
So there's no hologram at this point, which definitely feels like a mistake.
Yes. Ben enters Magic's office to find Martinez. Martinez is impressed Ben made it and says he's well dressed, but thinks that he himself is even better dressed. 2018 Addison comes in with a gun and tells Ben to step away from Magic. They finally realize who Martinez is, and should have taken them significantly less time.
I mean, even at the beginning of this scene, I don't think Ben realized that's Magic's body.
Doesn't understand why Martinez is hanging around in Magic's office.
And wearing his leather jacket.
Right.
But then we get the reveal. Martinez looks in the mirror, and there is Magic. So if anybody's confused, we know for 100% now the person that Martinez leaped into is Magic. And that explains when Addison called him how he was able to, why he convinced Addison not to trust Ben. I'm going to take a side note really quick. Somebody on Twitter had a great theory of who they could have leapt Martinez into. And I love this theory. I would have loved to have seen it. Instead of Magic, what about if they had leapt Martinez into Al?
And then we wouldn't see Al.
We wouldn't see Al. We'd see Martinez. So it'd be Martinez dressed up as Al. And that would bring... We would have had a chance to interact with some version of Al as Martinez. And I think that would have been super cool. And he could have been like told Magic, hey, I'm coming back. I'm coming back to the project with you. Al must have security clearance to enter the building. Everybody would respect him and listen to his opinions when he's trying to tell them what to do.
And he'd be able to overrule Magic of all people.
Yeah.
Because he would have, even more authority than Magic does, I'm assuming.
Right. And even if, he didn't officially have any control over this project, they respect him enough that they would they would listen to anything he had to say. And I think that would have been perfect. I would have loved that.
You could even add a mirror image
you could,
of Al
without
it being totally disrespectful, I think.
Right.
Some people
and get a chance to pull out, some of Al's wardrobe. And I think that would have been... much more amazing than just referencing Al in this episode.
Yeah.
And since somebody proposed that idea, I'm really sad that's not what they did.
You know what? Me too. I'm just going to go upstairs and cry for a little bit, and I'll be back in a little bit.
But that's not the case. Martinez has left into magic, and here we are.
Ben tells Addison, as the rest of the gang gets there, that Magic is the time-leaping assassin. And what a shock, no one believes him. They check Martinez for weapons. He has none, other than the cigars meant for Al.
Yeah, which, nobody picked up on that. I picked up on that. And we'll come back around to it, but clearly that tells us that Magic was lying when he said Al got the cigars.
Right, absolutely.
So the cigars there, it's a big telltale sign.
They all end up asking Ben questions. What is Addison's goldfish's name? What coffee shop does Jen and Ben go to? And I forgot what the other question is.
What's Ian's favorite game? Which we know because that already came up in this episode.
Several times, as a matter of fact.
I think this is the first time we're hearing about the goldfish. Now, the coffee shop threw me because in earlier episodes twice, we've seen them get coffee, and it was not this place that they name, and I didn't even write down what the answer was when we get it, but I do know that earlier in the season, they went to Pretty Little Lattes.
Pretty Little Lattes.
Yeah, which is a take on Pretty Little Liars.
Right. Yeah, so Ben doesn't know any of the answers to these questions because he has a Swiss cheese memory.
Yeah.
But Martinez, who's probably gotten all these answers from...
Martinez came super prepared for this.
Yes.
So Martinez is ready to answer any question about these people's lives.
I'm kind of curious, would Magic know all of the answers to these questions?
Magic?
Yes, would Magic. I mean,
got you.
So
they're asking Magic.
Yeah, they're asking Magic, but...
No, wait, they're asking Ben.
Well, yeah, but Magic answers.
Oh, okay.
Martinez Magic answers these questions.
Right.
Would Magic know all the answers to those questions?
Assuming they all get coffee at this coffee shop, they'd know that one. Maybe not the goldfish. I assume Ian talks about Dark Souls a lot since that's what they're doing 6 nights a week.
Yeah, maybe.
Magic seems to be, he's the fatherly type, so they're all probably pretty close with him.
Yeah.
You know how many heart-to-hearts happen in this place, so...
Okay, so Ben ends up getting locked in a cage, and despite Ben's desperate pleas to Addison to, not do this, that she's going to end up getting killed by Martinez.
And the goldfish's name is Scout,
yes.
by the way.
Is that a, To Kill a Mockingbird reference?
Perhaps.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I feel like that's a good thing to memorize for trivia questions.
Oh, yes. If you end up participating, keep that in mind. Okay, so let's see. Martinez gives the team orders. Addison wants to stand guard of Ben, and Martinez tells Addison to take a moment because of what she has just been through, to use his office. Martinez ends up suggesting leaving the gun, probably because he doesn't want her to be armed.
Right. But under the guise of the fact that, hey, you just shot the gun.
Yeah, you killed a fire extinguisher. Maybe you should, take a moment to be without your gun.
And his orders to Jen and Ian is to erase all the security footage from the day. Doesn't that, his reasoning was, we can't let the government find out that there's been a breach of the project, but doesn't that seem a little suspicious? Just go delete all the security footage.
Right.
Clearly... Magic is trying to hide something. Right.
So, I don't know. I guess Jen is pretty close to Magic and maybe wouldn't necessarily be automatically suspicious.
Right.
But of all the characters, she seems to be the most suspicious. And I don't know. I figure she would question these orders at the very least. Addison says she meant to miss and that it was a warning shot. So, according to this Addison... Ben was right. She did, in fact, she missed on purpose.
Yeah, well, of course she did.
And she also claims that she does not have emotions for Ben, which is a kind of a weird way to phrase it, but Martinez doesn't argue any further, and I figured that Martinez would try a little harder to not have Addison have that gun.
Yeah, he could have just been like, no, I'm taking it. And take it. But he lets her keep the gun.
Ben ends up knocking on the cage, trying to, get somebody's attention. Magic appears for the first time as a hologram. And so, basically everybody except Ian gets a chance in the imaging chamber in this episode.
Right? I guess the fact that we got 3 Ians, we only got 2 of everybody else.
Yeah, I mean, I think Ian definitely had plenty of moments in the sun
Ian's
without
hands
this.
were busy,
right?
Trying to figure out the
doesn't have
code.
time for this for sure.
But back to that last scene. I know you mentioned it briefly, but why was there no hologram there with them then?
Right.
Who could have answered these questions?
Right. Oh yeah.
Any one of them.
Mm-hmm.
Any one of them could have came in and helped him with these trivia questions.
I mean, at least gotten one of them right.
Right. Why didn't anybody jump in and help?
Right.
Like, you would think they're there for all these steps. Why, during the confrontation between Martinez, this struggle to prove who is real here, why is that the time we don't have any hologram?
Ben will be fine. Clearly they were very wrong. Yeah, you said during when we were rewatching this that the 2023 crew really dropped the ball.
Yeah, like this would have been the moment to come in and tell him the answer to these questions.
Magic tells him that Addison is not coming, and Ben emotionally wonders how he can leap through time, saving strangers, but not the one he loves. And this is very reminiscent of The Leap Home, where Sam had a very similar emotional speech when he's in that episode. He's trying to save his brother, he's trying to save his father from a heart attack, and he's trying to get his sister not to marry an abusive boyfriend. And like basically he ends up upsetting his sister to the point where Al tells him to, just tell him you made it all up. And he does that, and then he ends up running away and then emotionally breaking down, saying, how can I save strangers but not the ones I love?
Right.
So this is very reminiscent of that.
Yeah, and Magic comes back, and we get this heart-to-heart between Magic and Ben. The first time we get to see him giving Ben any fatherly advice here. And, he talks about how he understands completely, because the whole reason he wanted to get the project back up was to bring home Sam. And so far, he hasn't been able to do that.
Right. Magic says that the entire fabric... Oh, yeah, okay. So apparently the entire fabric of the entire universe is at stake, and that means less to Ben than Addison does. He says that the people we love are our biggest weakness. Magic says he risked everything to bring Sam home. I'm not sure what he's referring to there. What exactly did he risk?
He kind of gave up his family.
Okay.
There have been mentions that he's estranged from his kids because of running this project.
But he feels that there's nothing wrong with having a weakness for people. And maybe that's why the quantum accelerator chose Ben, because he's the type of guy who will do anything for the people he cares about. And again, we're talking about the quantum accelerator, like the quantum accelerator is the one responsible for leaping.
Again, we're using quantum accelerator instead of saying God, time, fate, whatever.
Magic tells Ben to write turtle time on the wall. Ben doesn't have a pen, but Magic tells him he always keeps a pen in his breast pocket.
And
in other words,
explanation
to get it from
of
Martinez.
Why am I writing turtle time on the wall was, Jen said you have to. Okay.
Right. And at this point, I'm thinking we're making a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle reference.
Oh, absolutely. That's the only place that that anybody who, is old enough to have watched this original series, his mind's going to go with it.
Martinez comes into the cell and tells Ben that he is relentless. 2018 Jen and Ian watch, not able to hear Magic, really Martinez. Jen is about to delete the footage, but Ian notices in the footage Ben talking to himself and writing something in a notebook.
Right, this is earlier when Ben first got to 2018, he wrote the code down that he had just got from 2051 Ian, and this is when when Addison first arrived, hologram Addison. So that's what they're seeing on the footage.
Ian looks behind themselves and finds a notebook which contains the future code.
Yeah, so now all 3 versions of Ian have this code in front of them. Except 2018 and 2023 both have no idea what it is or what to do with it.
Right. Ben asks Martinez if he's there to kill him. And Martinez says no, because his friends are watching and he needs their cooperation. It'd be really hard to justify if Magic took out a gun and shot Ben right then while they're watching. Like, why'd you kill the prisoner? Like, what was up with that?
Right. Especially since, he's in Ben's body.
Right.
As far as they know, this is a third party that has taken over Ben.
Right. Ben speculates that the accelerator is on his side. Martinez says that everyone always thinks that God is on their side, but they can't all be right. Ben tells Martinez that the government destroys the accelerator, and Martinez can't go home. He's on a suicide mission. Martinez knows this. In fact, he's the one who suggested it. Ben says that the government is wrong about Addison, too, and Martinez knows. He ran probability scenarios through Ziggy. No matter who you kill, one of them keeps running the project. So the solution, according to Martinez, is to kill all of you. Martinez is going to destroy the accelerator here in the past. Ben attacks Martinez, likely to get the pen. But making it kind of seem like it's an emotional outburst.
Yeah, because he knows that pen is in Magic's pocket, which is Martinez's pocket.
And Magic must have known that Ben would get this opportunity. 2018, Addison is in Magic's office, and she sees the cigars and realizes that Al never got them.
Right.
Magic is lying.
And it's a good thing she asked Magic about the cigars, because this confirms to her that Magic isn't telling the truth, which means Magic must not be Magic.
Meanwhile, Ben writes Turtle Time on the wall, and Jen notices it and goes to ask Ben about it.
That is 2018, Jen.
Right. Ben tells her that Jen of 2023 told him. Ian realizes the reference to Real Housewives and ends up freaking out about it.
Yeah.
Realizing that they could have had, watch parties of Real Housewives all this time.
Well, remember, Ben and Addison watch Real Housewives every week.
Right.
And the whole team went to watch it with Addison that first time, when Ben was gone. And I kind of feel like we got the insinuation there that nobody liked the show, but apparently everybody watches it.
Right, but they all don't want to admit it. I don't like the show. I've never watched it. I'm never going to. And I don't kind of like it secretly at the same time. So I'm not just fronting. When we were talking about Turtle Time, I thought that this, like I said, that this was a reference to Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and I was feeling a certain kinship to Jen at this moment, but now that's all gone up in the air.
I'm not sure what Turtle Time means in reference to the Real Housewives, but I also have no desire to find out.
Well, apparently it's Jen's password that if a time traveler were ever to go back into the past,
herself specifically,
she would know the password.
Right, and this makes sense that Jen would have a secret password for herself.
Right.
So this is something that she knows. It's in her brain. She's never written it down anywhere. She's never coded it anywhere. She's never told anyone. So this is this true thing to convince herself that if I ever hear this code, it really did come from myself.
Mm-hmm.
Which it's a good thing she did that. But also, is there not any doubt that maybe someone tortured you to get this out of you?
Right. Maybe your future self was in some kind of interrogation room, getting waterboarded, and so on and so forth.
I get that it's the most positive you could be, but also I don't feel like it's 100% guarantee.
No. But anyway, Jen ends up realizing that it is Ben as far as she's concerned. So she just ends up accepting this. They hug it out, and Ben tells that Martinez is about to blow up the Quantum Leap accelerator. Ian suggests that they can program the accelerator to implode, which would wipe out everything in a 3-mile radius.
Yeah, Ian was like, well, that doesn't make sense. He can't make it blow up because he'd have to bring an awful lot of explosives in here, but he could implode it.
Ian says that the code looks like the cheat code to a complicated video game and realizes, after Ben tells them, that he got it from the future Ian. 2023 Ian is confused what their past self just said, and Jen confesses to watching The Real Housewives. Current Ian doesn't care about that because current Ian is more well-adjusted, apparently not as much of a mess as the 2018 version. Ian says that that the code resembles a cheat game to a video game, and that clicks something in their head.
Yeah, so both Ians now are starting to piece together what's going on, what the deal is with this code.
2018 Addison confronts Martinez with the gun and says, I don't know who you are, but it sure as heck isn't Magic.
And what Martinez is doing is he turned on the accelerator.
Mm-hmm.
So Martinez is doing whatever he needs to do to implode this accelerator and destroy it. And that's what, Addison interrupts. So the accelerator is now powered on,
mm-hmm.
which is important.
Martinez pulls a gun on her and asks what gave him away, and Addison ends up revealing that the cigars, because he replaced magic before meeting with Al.
Yeah, and this was our second time in the episode we heard the phrase Al's Place in a sentence.
Right. Al's Place being a very famous website related to Quantum Leap. I actually at one time won a Season 4 Quantum Leap DVD set from them.
Ooh.
And a coaster, too.
Well, I mean, of course, Al's Place website took the name from...
Right, of course, mirror image.
from the actual Al's Place bar, which is, canon within the series.
Yeah, right. But I think winning the Season 4 DVD is much more important than any of that. Just kidding. I don't think that. Addison says, what is he doing with the accelerator? Putting right what once went wrong.
Yeah, and nobody liked Martinez saying that line.
Right.
So
especially not Ben.
Especially Ben. He's like, nope, that's my thing, and
they end up attacking each other.
Kind of pushes Martinez up against the wall, but his gun goes off.
Mm-hmm. And Addison ends up getting shot in the arm, but not killed at the very least. Ben and Martinez end up in the accelerator.
And Jen and Ian came, and they rushed to help Addison.
Mm-hmm.
You'd think they'd, I don't know, at least one of them would go try and stop whatever the accelerator's doing.
Right, especially since they mentioned that they were trying to implode the thing.
Right.
So they
turn it off, maybe.
Right. Maybe try. Ben and Martinez end up going at each other, and then they vanish. My initial reaction to that was, what the hell just happened?
So they both leap.
Right.
Now, this is Ben inside other Ben. So double Ben leaped.
Right.
And now we've got Martinez inside Magic.
Right.
Leaped.
Effectively wiping them out of the timeline.
So we have two people who are already in a leap, are now on a leap within a leap. And they're using this accelerator that... The accelerator Ben used was still years away from being tested, right? This is 5 years earlier.
Right.
Like, they've hardly even, plugged the accelerator in.
Well, is that what caused them to leap, or did they just leap incidentally?
I'm pretty sure it was because they were standing in the accelerator.
I mean, it makes sense, but...
Yeah, the accelerator grabbed them and pulled them out of this moment.
Mm-hmm.
But that seems even more dangerous since the accelerator's not itself.
Right.
I don't know the words to say what I'm trying to say, but I know you know what I mean.
Right, I get what you're saying. Hopefully the people listening do as well. They find themselves back in
so this is our third leap now of this episode.
Martinez asks what happened, and Ben says the accelerator must be retracing their leaps.
Yeah, so we're at the last place that Ben and Martinez encountered each other. So they're in this 1954 mental hospital. And one thing I'm confused about is during these leaps, where exactly in the leap are we?
Right.
We're not at the beginning of the leap.
Mm-hmm.
We're not at the aftermath of the leap because some of these characters wouldn't have been where they were.
Right.
It seems like they're at some random scenario that involved their two hosts.
Right. It's not really made clear. It actually seems, especially in the Salvation or Bus when we go to that point.
That definitely didn't happen while they were there.
That moment.
So it's like, weirder. Are you leaping into these people you've already been at some totally different part of their lives where they happen to be in the same room together? I feel like the settings were just a little, it didn't make sense in that regard. And really, okay, so I love, yay, we're going to get to visit past leaps. This felt amazing. Okay, I love this.
And I remember you saying that it was basically, we only have 8 minutes.
Yeah, exactly. It was 10:52 when this happened. And I automatically knew, we're not going to get the time to sit in this that I want to.
Right.
Right? So we do get to see the 3 times that Ben and Martinez encountered each other before. And again, I loved that. But I think it'd been a lot better if we took our time, spent a little more time in these spots, slowed down just a little bit, let it breathe a little.
Right. I
would have loved to see more leaps. You know, the ones where they weren't together, just trying to get to each other. I would have maybe even loved to see, hey, maybe it sends them to some of Sam's locations.
Right.
Because they're in this accelerator doing something that was never supposed to happen, leaping within a leap, leaping backwards through leaps. I feel like there was a lot of potential here to show us, even just 2 seconds here or there, clips, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like this could have been so much more if we had more than 3 minutes to get through this whole sequence.
Yeah, so and Martinez is like, send me back, and Ben is like, I don't know how, and they instantly start punching
Why would
each other.
Martinez think Ben had any control over what's going on right now?
And they just end up starting attacking each other. Ben is on the losing end of this here, and Martinez ends up asking, you still think the machine is on your side? And then they leap again. Ian realizes that
2023 Ian
realizes what the cheat code is. He used the cheat code whenever a game got too difficult, sending you to a specific point in the game to try again.
Yeah, basically it's a redo button.
Right. So he asks, well, what if we can get Ben to do this and fix his mistakes from the 2018 day? The screwed up date, so on and so forth.
Yeah, so 2023 Ian gets to working on trying to implement this code now that they understand what it's going to do.
Meanwhile, the 2018 crew is trying to figure out how to get Ben back. Addison says...
And they're able to trace through, now that they used that version of the accelerator, they can see the leap.
Yeah.
And they're in 1954. So they're seeing it. But remember, this team has never experienced these leaps.
Right.
So they're like, what's going on?
Right.
The 2023 team's not seeing the leaps.
Mm-hmm. Addison says that she should have believed him, Ben specifically, but she got scared. And Jen rips Addison saying, so you do have emotions for Ben. Ben and Martinez end up leaping into SOS.
Yep, they're back on the USS Montana. Again, in a scene that is out of place from anything we actually saw during that episode.
Ben answers Martinez's question that yes, he does believe the accelerator is on his side. And, we have this moment where, one of the officers is like, restrain them.
Well, the way I took it, I thought Ben said that.
Oh, I thought someone else said that.
I mean, I could have got it wrong because I was confused at this point, and I was trying to look at Ben's name tag to see if he was still Rossi because it looked like it said something different, but I couldn't. It wasn't clear enough for me to see. But I thought that Ben is the one who gave that order because he realized he was a superior officer to Martinez.
Right, and nobody listens to him. By the way, nobody does anything. They end up fighting some more. Ben calls Martinez the Terminator, and Ben remembers the boxing coach from episode 3. Someone up there likes Ben, and starts more effectively fighting.
Yeah, he remembered how to fight because he was taught that in a leap. So this is one way we brought in another leap, but especially because they did that, I would have liked to see more elements from various leaps.
Right. And then they end up leaping again. 2023 tells Ian that the cheat code will bring Ben back to the beginning of the day in 2018. If either dies in the past, they are gone.
Yeah, this is only gonna work if they can put this code in before Ben leaps again, and he can't die. Basically, death cannot be rewritten.
Martinez and Ben end up leaping into salvation or bust. Okay, this is the moment that was the weirdest moment for me. Okay, so, they were in the asylum. They were at least in that room at some point.
Yeah.
In SOS, they were in that area.
Yeah, but except during the leap, they never were in the same room at the same time.
That's true.
They never were until they were on the deck. So that's why I'm saying, these moments seem out of place of their original leaps.
And Salvation or Bust are on some kind of random rooftop.
It was like a balcony.
Yeah.
Which definitely didn't happen. Martinez's character was just in the background during the entire episode. We actually have no idea what he did there.
So they end up duking it out again.
But yeah, we're in 1879 again.
Right. 2018 crew realizes the cheat code thing too. Both 2023 and 2018 get error messages when they try to implement the code. Martinez gets the upper hand on Ben holding a gun on him. 2023 Ian realizes he needs another player. Right,
because someone, and I forget if it was Jen or Addison, said, well, did it work? When you did this on your video game in 2018? And they're like, well, no, that's because Dark Souls is impossible to beat without a second player. Which also, I might mention, doesn't make sense to me. I from my memory, I don't remember Dark Souls being a cooperative play like that. I looked it up briefly. It is multiplayer, but in a player versus player format, not in a cooperative format. So I don't think the comment that you would need a second player to help you win the game fits that game. Okay. Just saying.
Oh yeah, and then he realizes what we need each other means. That it isn't just some random nice sentiment from Ian. That they have to enter the code at the same time.
Right. That it has to happen over multiple over multiple timelines. They have to do it at exactly the same time. They have to be completely in sync. And they both understand this at the same time. And this is where we get back to that whole rule of entanglement.
Yes. Martinez tells Ben that the machine just landed him in a position to get his brains blown out. That's not an exact quote. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah. And he's like, we're back here where it should have ended in the first place. Like, I should have killed you when we were here the first time and never dealt with any of this.
But Martinez is shot by Frankie, the bar owner from that episode. Ben tells Frankie that it's good to see her again. 2018 Addison brings up the quantum entanglement, which he just brought up. All Ians exist as one, future, present, and past, and they all end up entering the code together. Well, that is certainly touching. I half expected to see Ian, like, rising up.
Yeah, we got to see 2051 Ian kind of sitting, he's like sitting, they're sitting cross-legged in this heap of disaster. It was a weird image.
Yeah, I thought he was gonna like rise up from the air and there was gonna be some like, bright lights, maybe like we were suddenly watching Pokemon or something. But
yeah, and this is where I don't really understand the whole how are they accessing their one self or whatever. But the bottom line is it worked.
Yeah,
I guess we're like giving this impression that Ian is somehow operating at a higher
level of consciousness.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so Ben leads back into the beginning of that day in 2018, and we hear Ian complaining about trivia night again. Future Addison, or present day Addison, or whatever, 2023 Addison arrives, pretending to not remember Ben.
Yeah, she's like, who are you?
But it's just a joke, reminiscent of that moment in the previous episode with Ian and Ben.
Yeah.
Addison ends up thanking Ben for saving her, and Ben apologizes for going off script and almost getting them all killed. And Addison points out that he almost destroyed the entire universe, too. Ben asks about Martinez, and Addison says he's gone. Lost to time.
Lost in time, right. She didn't say he's dead.
Right.
So there is some ambiguity of what exactly happened with Martinez.
Right. And we were both confused why Martinez doesn't end up showing up here.
Yeah, so they implied that he gets to do this day over again. But if you're doing this day over again, and you're now back at the start of this leap, I don't understand why Martinez wouldn't also be there. So this Martinez that went backwards through the leaps with Ben was shot, he's taken out, he's lost, he's dead, whatever. Okay, he's not coming back. Great. But the original Martinez from that morning that left into magic, or that, earlier in the leap, why would that not still happen in this instance if we're just back at the beginning of the leap again? Just
because he died doesn't mean he's totally wiped out from existence. Unless you're saying that you were back in that leap in Salvation or Bust, so that's where his journey ended, in which case you don't need to leap back to 2018. You're done at that point.
Yeah. I don't, if they're trying to say like Martinez's whole journey was erased, I don't like that.
No.
Because that defeats everything they've done. And, remember, Ben couldn't have even gotten out of Ben Interrupted without Martinez's help.
Right.
So I don't understand. It's not even that I don't understand their explanation, because I don't feel like they gave us an explanation.
Right.
Of if we're back at this day so Ben can do it better, fix his mistakes from this leap. Well, why are we not seeing the leap again?
Right.
Like, it should be the beginning of the leap again. And the leap is you're here because Martinez is about to appear. And this is one of those moments where I'm like, did I miss something? Or did nobody think of this? Like, I feel like there's a step missing somewhere between where my brain is and where the episode is.
Yeah, absolutely.
Involving the pre-magic leap Martinez.
Right. The answer is we are out of time, so we don't have any more time to get into it.
Yeah, but they're like, oh, it's all fixed, and that doesn't make sense to me.
No.
I don't know.
Yeah, I don't quite understand that either at this point. So Addison ends up telling Ben that he's gonna go home. But Ben says he can't get over asking Ziggy for the probabilities on whether to go out on a date or not. who does that? And Addison says that past Addison probably missed on purpose. In fact, we know that to be true.
Yeah. Well, I'm thinking she's telling him at this point.
Yeah.
Because, she knew for sure because it's
Right.
her.
Mm-hmm.
But also she says something like along the lines of, oh, now we just need to figure out why you're here so you can leap.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we know why you're here. You're here to stop Martinez.
Right.
Like, what is going on right now?
Right. But they seem to think that they got their relationship wrong in the beginning, and Ben asks permission to get it right. So Ben does this by approaching Addison and making out with her while the 2018 crew hoots and hollers.
Yeah, so now this is in the new timeline.
Yep.
This is Ben and Addison's first kiss.
Yep.
And this is our Ben's first time getting to kiss Addison.
Oh, yes.
Since remembering her.
Right.
Which is awesome, right? He got to have this awkward date with her earlier, but now he's actually kissing his fiance, who hardly knows him. But that's beautiful, that they get that moment, that he gets that moment, that experience.
Mm-hmm. And Ben ends up leaping.
He leaps.
The 2023 crew expectantly waits for Ben to leap
they're
back.
all wrapped around the accelerator. They're like, oh, he leapt. He's coming. Now, this also gives us the insinuation, I just thought of this, that this leap's happening, like, as soon as Ben leaps, he's getting to his destination immediately.
Mm-hmm.
And we've had that question before of, like, is there time between the leaps?
Right.
And we know in the original series, there was time, sometimes days, between when Sam would land somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that's come up in different discussions about this series. And I feel like this is showing us, they're expecting him right now. They're not expecting this to take any time.
Right. And they see the accelerator doing its thing, and it looks like someone is leaping back, but then we cut to Addison's face, and it's a disappointed expression.
Yeah, you can clearly tell by the look on her face, something went wrong.
And fade to black.
Yeah.
And that is the end
That's
of
the
season
cliffhanger.
1.
We don't get to see what made Addison make that face.
And my initial reaction was, you've got to be kidding me.
Yeah, that felt...
We couldn't even, cut to an empty accelerator or something.
Right, give us a clue of what we're upset about.
Right.
So, let's talk about our options. What might have just happened?
Well, obviously we know that Ben didn't come home.
The easiest answer is Ben started to appear and then disappeared.
Mm-hmm.
That's the easiest answer. But again, why wouldn't they have just shown it to us if that's what it is?
Right. So, my thought is that someone else ended up leaping back.
Right. Now, the fan favorite theory is that it's Sam.
Right. And that's my hope as well.
It's hope we can all have, but I feel pretty confident that's not the case. Because I feel like that would have leaked already by now.
Mm-hmm.
Because they've already filmed the first, 5 episodes.
Right.
And if that's the case, they would have already filmed a Scott Bakula appearance.
Right.
And if anything, I feel like the conversation is we're still looking for that to be a possibility in the future.
Right.
If they'd already filmed that, they're keeping it super tight.
Yeah, and that's unheard of in television.
Yeah.
The only time that I can recall them shooting something and not having it come out is maybe when they did the Breaking Bad movie El Camino, and they totally didn't reveal that they were actually filming that movie. But no, usually if something gets filmed, there's at least some kind of sighting on set of that actor.
Yeah,
and there would be rumors.
I feel very sure that Sam didn't come through.
Mm-hmm.
But a huge part of the casual audience thinks that's what's happening.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like that's going to be a letdown.
Yeah.
When we open season 2 and there's no Sam, when people are now convincing themselves that that's the case.
Right.
So I obviously would love that to be the case, but I'm about 99% sure that's not the case.
Right. My thought is maybe it's Addison.
Could be Addison, write the version of Addison that was the leaper.
Right.
Although that would force us to confront a multiverse theory,
right?
Which we haven't really engaged in this series.
There's also the possibility that it's Martinez again.
It could be Martinez, and I think that's a big possibility. It could be the version of Martinez that I was expecting to appear in 2018.
Right.
And he's like, why am I here instead of where I was headed?
Right.
It could be the Martinez that just got shot. Maybe he leaped out when the accelerator was pulling Ben. It could be any version of Martinez, and that would make sense to me. That we would now have a Martinez here. And as himself. Like, he was pulled back
Right.
out of the leap, and now he's in 2023.
I kind of get the feeling that the creators don't want to continue that storyline. That they just
I don't
want
know.
that to be done. And
I
over
kind
with.
of feel like there's good chemistry between that actor
And the
and
other
Raymond
actors.
Lee.
Yeah, I agree. I agree.
can't. Walter Perez.
Yeah.
I feel like they have a good chemistry.
That was most evident in Ben Interrupted.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, I wouldn't mind if we keep Martinez in the loop in some capacity.
Right.
But I think, yeah, that's only going to happen in this case if that is Martinez who came through.
Right.
Other options. I saw people were talking about, there was a lot of crazy theories, so let's just keep going.
Okay.
Let's keep
What
it
else did
getting
you hear?
crazier. What about Ian?
The future Ian?
The Ian that leaped
Mm-hmm.
and then made it back home. Maybe he made a pit stop here
Maybe.
because they got pulled.
Mm-hmm.
What about Aaliyah or
Right.
Zoe or
And
somebody
one
from
of
the
the
Evil
Evil Leaper
Leapers project? Because we clearly brought the project up. We brought up these characters by name, which tells me they have to have a plan to incorporate that story in some fashion somewhere.
Or maybe it was just to shoot down the whole fan theory that Martinez was an evil Leaper.
Right,
in the
but
first
why bring it up? Why make it canon within the series? You've confirmed that Evil Leapers exist.
Yeah. Yeah. That could be interesting.
What about... I'm trying to think of something new that I haven't thought of yet. I think I went through like the basic list of things people have suggested. And I have one fan theory that I want to read, but I was just trying to come up with more crazy ones myself. I don't think I got any, though.
Maybe it's me.
Oh, I know one I thought of. Janice.
Janice, okay.
Yeah.
But
like some other version of Janice when she was trying to figure all this out. Ends up...
You did hear something from the Bates Wide Wheel podcast that Janice is not in the first 6 episodes.
That's true. Yeah, we do know that actress, Georgina Riley, hasn't been filmed.
I don't understand why.
Unless that was a deterrent so that we don't know that's who it really is.
Yeah, that could be possible.
And that all was a lie.
Yeah.
It was gone all the way through the grapevine.
Yeah. So I mean, if she's not there at all, it's like, why not? Like, did she just like, oh, Ben didn't leave home. See ya, smell you guys later. Like, why would she stick around to find out what happened to him?
Yeah.
So, yeah, I don't...
Which also tells me we're not opening right in that scene again, because she was there.
Mm-hmm.
She was standing in that circle.
Yeah, so some time has passed.
We're not going to get to see that moment unless they just cut her right out of it, because they, whatever reason, they didn't have that actress.
Right.
I don't know. Okay, so one person online had a theory that I kind of really like. And I'm going to actually give this person credit. This is on Twitter at LBDG. That's who said this. And they wrote, and I'm not quoting this word for word, but what if the person who appeared in the accelerator is Ben's next host?
Oh, okay.
Whoever Ben leapt into, what if this person appeared in the accelerator and this marks the return of having the need for a waiting room? Because suddenly and unexpectedly, we have a Leapy appear at the project.
That would be interesting. That could finally explain that question.
Because in the original series, Dr. Sam Beckett vanished. So did the first person who leapt in, Tom Stratton, did he appear in the accelerator?
Right.
Like, where would he have appeared?
Right. Yeah, I mean, he wouldn't have shown up in the waiting room. That wouldn't make any sense.
It would make sense that he appeared in the waiting room and then they put him, or he appeared in the accelerator and then they moved him to the waiting room, which would then be where future hosts would leap into.
Right. Makes sense.
I like this theory. And I do know the creators, even though they had explained that they cut the waiting room out on purpose, they didn't like it. I've seen them express, well, maybe that's a storyline we could explore in the future. Maybe after seeing people being confused of why you don't have it or why you haven't explained it.
Right.
So I kind of really like that.
Yeah.
I definitely wouldn't mind if they are just like, oh, we thought we didn't need a waiting room, but now we do.
Yeah. I'm fine with that. Like, I think it's less confusing than, what was going on in this episode with Martinez in Magic leaping and then completely disappearing, along with original Ben
And
also,
I actually have a thought on that.
Oh, okay.
This came to me while reading Twitter, and I don't know if it makes any. It's probably too
Because-
wild and out there to make any sense. But this came to me when talking about the reference to Al's Place being mentioned twice. They used the phrase Al's Place, and the first time we heard it was Magic saying, "I'm headed to Al's Place." What if that's just foreshadowing that our displaced Magic that never existed because this timeline was erased? But this displaced leaper Magic aura,
right?
What if he ends up one of those ghost leapers at Al's Place?
That would be really cool.
You know, when we're at Al's Place, we meet all of these leapers,
right?
Who's never really explained. Are they ghosts? Are they leapers? Who are these people?
We insinuated that one of them, Strappa, the one we actually saw leap,
right,
was actually dead.
Yeah, like he said he had lived like long time before. And then he leaped, like, you know, with the same effects as Sam. So there was this insinuation that there's all these people in this bar in, was it Colberg? Is that the name of the town?
Something like that. It was Pennsylvania, I think.
Yeah. I'm sorry, I just got stuck on my words. Could that have all been, you know, just inference that, yes, he's headed to Al's Place?
That'd be cool. I hope we actually return to that bar at some point.
Yeah.
Or to that
to at least
some version of it,
right? Maybe even a different setting, like maybe that setting only existed for Sam, but something else that kind of drags in. What the heck was that about?
Right.
In the greater context of this universe, you know, because obviously nobody would know about that. You know, Sam was there. I doubt there's really any records of that leap.
Right. Well, I mean, Al was also there.
Al did make it there eventually, but very briefly.
Yeah.
And I don't think he got the full, like, scope of it. And I don't think Ziggy really understood what was going on.
Right. So, I mean, yeah, it's not long after that Sam ended up leaping again.
Right.
To, you know, the past where, you know, he fixes Al's and Beth's marriage. So, yeah.
And I just remembered one more theory that I saw about who could be in the accelerator.
Okay.
And actually, it was Fate's Wide Wheel that posted this one. They did a whole list, so this was one of the ones on their list. And this actually. Oh,
okay. I know where you're going with this.
Did you see this?
Yeah, I think yeah.
It brings up something that we talked about. I think we just mentioned it last week because it's something that my husband brought up.
Did we bring it up on air?
I thought so.
Oh, okay.
I thought so. Maybe not, because, you know, we talk a lot and it gets confusing.
I think we did actually.
So last week the day before we recorded our last episode, my husband and I watched A Leap for Lisa. And one of the things that happened in that episode is Bingo, which is young Al, while he was in the waiting room, was put into the accelerator and leapt into himself a week prior to the start of the leap. And Adam is very convinced that this means there's a version of Al that spent his life leaping and lost in time without any contact to a project.
Right.
And one of Fate's Wide Wheel's guesses, and I don't know who was operating the account at that time, they said, what if it's Bingo that appears in the accelerator?
Right. And that's a way to include Al's character. You could just cast a younger person to play him.
Well, the only way I'd be happy with it is if we got the original Bingo to do it.
But he's probably pretty old at this point.
He's 30 years older, but maybe he's been leaping for 30 years.
Okay.
And I think that would still put him a little bit younger than when we met Al. I mean, obviously, recasting Al would be something nobody would like that.
No.
But if we're gonna get a recast, the only person I'd be happy with is the person who's already played Al.
That makes sense.
Right. In addition to Dean Stockwell, this person, and I don't know the actor's name.
I looked it up at one point.
It's not a name I know. He's Ray from 90210. He's the only other person that's literally played Al, right? And he's Al in the photograph.
Right.
Like the photo at the end of the series that we see, the last leap image is of this actor who's playing Bingo.
Right.
So I would be okay with him playing some version of Al.
Gotcha.
That we call Bingo.
Okay.
His name's Bingo.
Mhm.
That's it. He's a separate character.
Mhm.
Even though he's genetically the same as Al.
If you were leaping around in time, you would end up being a very different person.
Right. He'd be very different. He wouldn't be anything like Al. So I think that could be pulled off. I absolutely don't think we're going there.
Right.
But the fact that somebody else came up with this theory the same time we're kind of talking about Bingo leaping, it feels notable. And, it reminds me of Sliders, season 5 where we replaced Quinn Mallory.
I try not to think about that.
We replaced Quinn Mallory with a different Quinn, and we just call him Cue Ball, and it's a different actor. And, that's horrible.
Right.
But in this case, I think I'd be okay with it if it was this actor, because he has played Al.
Right. That makes sense. Yeah, Sliders is a series I was considering covering, but it goes just so totally off the rails in its later seasons that no thank you.
It's one you either give up after 3 seasons or you begrudgingly sit through it all.
Right. I eventually ended up doing that many years after the fact, but basically...
season 4 is bad. Season 5 is basically unwatchable.
Basically.
And they're still talking revivals of that series.
Yeah, with some of the with the original actors. I know that the one who played Arturo, whose name is escaping me at the moment, but I know him, has talked about it. And
I think,
Jerry O'Connell has definitely said he's interested. And I think his brother has also talked about being interested.
And I think the hardest thing with that, besides, obviously finding someone to actually want to do it, is where would you go with that story, right? Because they broke the story so bad. They'd have to,
they could just take one of his doubles and then...
Yeah, but...
From a different universe.
I don't know. It'd be hard to pull that story back, I think. I think almost you'd have to just start completely over with that one.
Yeah, and, that was a series that had so much potential. Its first season was great. Second season...
I loved Sliders. I was all into it. And then I didn't like the Cro-Mags, and then we started losing all of our actors, and then the stories got ridiculous, and then the whole thing completely fell apart when Sci-Fi took over.
You could say what you want about Quantum Leap, but it never went off.
It held.
It didn't go anywhere near off the rails.
Yeah, we got this is my husband Adam's first watch through. We started season 5, and I was like, okay, we're on the last season. He's like, oh, is this where it falls apart? And I was like, no, some of my favorite episodes are in season 5.
There's a lot of people who don't like season 5.
They took a turn for sure.
Oh yeah,
but
they absolutely did.
It didn't ruin the show. I think a lot of it, like I said, a lot of my favorite episodes are in this season. And, maybe, it took some liberties. It took a turn, but I don't feel like it was bad.
No, neither do I.
Like so many shows do in their final season.
Right. Yeah, usually if the further along you go, there's a noticeable dip in quality.
Okay, so I think we covered the episode.
Yeah, so...
we got a tiny teaser for season 2.
I don't have an episode description. I have nothing.
Brief. No, we don't have any details. I think it's showing him in that little room. I'm assuming that's the first leap, because he was like, I was supposed to leap home. And it looked like he was in an airplane bathroom or a ship again. Tight-quartered bathroom or galley kitchen or something. The whole thing was 10 seconds. And I couldn't grasp onto anything other than that moment.
It was honestly just a bunch of random images.
Yeah, and I'm assuming all of those images are from the first 4 or 5 episodes, because that's what they've filmed.
And we already knew that Ben wasn't going home.
Yeah, that's obvious.
We kind of knew that before the finale even aired. But there was some question about that, because you could have just had somebody else be the leaper. Yeah. But still, we knew that the only thing that's confirmed in this promo is that Ben does not go home.
Ben does not go home.
Something that we
and it is
know.
Possible that was him in the accelerator and he just vanished again immediately. But yeah, so our big season 2 mystery is, why didn't Ben make it home? What is propelling him through time now? Is he stuck just the way Sam was stuck?
So my guess is that we might get into what we didn't resolve in this episode, which is maybe preventing this nuclear apocalypse that's supposed to happen.
Of course.
Because we did not resolve that story in any way.
That's still looming. So do you think that the accelerator is leaping Ben still to prevent this?
Yes, maybe.
Okay.
That's probably at least part of it.
See, I feel like that's more late game, and hoping we get more than 2 seasons.
Yes, I'm hoping for 10, 11, 12, 20 seasons. Yes, I would like to continue doing this podcast for a while. So, selfishly, I would like to see more seasons.
Let's assume we get multiple seasons. I would like to see that in a later season, not necessarily be something we try to resolve too quickly. It feels more like an end game.
Right. I mean, we don't actually even need to really explain why Ben is leaping through time.
No, we don't need to explain.
That they didn't really with Sam.
They didn't with Sam. It was just like, oh, retrieval failed and you're stuck now. But see, that's the thing is, and we've mentioned this before, our team seemed so sure that as soon as this fight with Martinez was over, he was coming home.
Right.
They seem to kind of ignore the fact that we haven't mastered retrieval.
Right.
Which is why the project is still years away from testing.
So, yeah, whatever that is controlling Ben's leaps could just be like, nope, you're not done yet. You're going to keep going. Yeah.
Now, do you think that Ziggy's going to come back?
I would hope so.
Yeah. Now that Martinez
there's no reason not to.
Now that Martinez is gone, we're going to turn Ziggy back on, right?
Because there's no future, that we have to worry about at this point, and I don't think we do, but...
I mean, could we not assume that if Martinez failed, they're going to send someone else in this time version?
Yeah.
Or why is that not going to still play out that Martinez goes again? Right,
they could just grab Martinez again and then send him again.
Right. It's hard to think about that whole time loop because I'm a little lost in it.
Right.
But yeah, I don't think the Martinez story is 100% closed just because he got shot and lost in time.
Right.
Even if we don't necessarily bring him back in that way.
Yeah, I don't know if the creative team intends to bring that character back or not. We wouldn't mind seeing it, as we already said, because they do have excellent chemistry, as you brought up, and them playing together in Ben Interrupted.
Now there's also young 2023 Martinez.
Right.
Could we go visit him again?
I'm sure.
Maybe they want to bring him into the project now to ensure that
he's on their side.
Future doesn't grab him. Right?
That makes sense.
That could be a thing. Where we recruit this I don't know about time travel yet version of Martinez.
Right.
But is the Future just going to pick somebody worse?
Right. I mean, yeah, if
the war still happens, whatever set off this nuclear whatever.
Yeah, just because Martinez lost here doesn't mean the government doesn't still
right. You have to still think that they're going to still try to end the project, and that's going to keep happening. Every version of the future that still involves this apocalyptic war is also going to involve the government blaming the project and trying to shut it down.
Right.
It may happen a little bit differently each time because the project ran a little bit differently, but you have to figure, like, we're going to get to that same roundabout conclusion until we actually do something to change
that could be why
future.
Ben is still leaping around in time, is to eventually fix that situation.
Yeah. But I also feel like if all of our stories start focusing on, like, oh, we got to stop a war, and I don't think I'd like that.
No. I'd be okay if they just went standalone, honestly, and just focused on the leap with the project scenes mixing in, kind of like they did with SOS, and actually they did in the latter half of the season. I don't need an overarching story to enjoy this series.
Yeah.
And they might still go that direction. They might still feel like they need to go in that direction. But I personally don't need that.
Yeah.
I enjoy the Leap story and this universe and playing around in it and trying different concepts, kind of like Leap, Die, Repeat, stuff like that. So, I don't know.
I kind of feel like that whole cliffhanger of what's Addison looking at in the accelerator is going to be something bigger than just Ben appeared and then vanished again.
Right.
Because I feel like
otherwise they would just show an empty accelerator.
Right. They would show us, and I feel like they kind of need that story. Like I feel like they want to tell some sort of story, in the present tense. And I feel like it's going to revolve somehow around what's happening there. Whether that's for better or worse, I don't know.
Right. You have any other thoughts on this episode?
I think we left this episode a while ago.
Yes. You have any other thoughts, period?
No, I think our next step is to kind of reevaluate the whole season,
Yes.
which we're going to do in our next episode.
Week will be a season 1 recap.
Yep, so we're going to go back and briefly touch on all of the episodes, kind of put it all into context now that we know how the season ends, and we're going to do our personal rankings.
Right. Yep.
And as much as I hate to try and make those decisions, I'm going to give every one of them a number. I'm going to do it. I'm going to write all 18 episodes down, and I'm going to force them into an order.
Okay.
And I want you to do the same.
I will
and we can
do my best.
both give our 1 to 18
right
on the season.
Makes sense.
And as of right now, I have no idea where I stand.
I know where I stand.
I feel like I can maybe put them into 3 piles. But sorting within those piles is going to be tricky for me.
Yeah, so, this season is over, but you and I are not going to be done. We're going to keep going. We will probably be doing some original series episodes.
Yep. Where did you leave off? You were right around Christmas.
The Christmas episode.
Is that your next one?
Yeah. So, yeah, that's a pretty good one that we have to look forward to. Like she mentioned earlier, we're going to be doing some trivia shows.
Yes.
We don't know what kind of format that's going to take.
Well, I know for sure we're going to do some trivia competitions between the 3 of us.
Right. And, if this were not Quantum Leap related and this were any other type of trivia, I would say I'd get my butt handed to me, and I might still. But given the fact that this isn't history or something like that, I don't think Adam will just walk away with it.
Yeah.
So I'm pretty confident that this might be a little bit competitive. We also were talking about, as we were earlier, talking about some kind of group trivia that we can include you guys in. So Ashley has already said that he wouldn't be interested in doing that because he doesn't really do trivia. He hasn't even actually watched the new show. Basically, Ashley just watches us. But there's still Kelly M. and Mark Davidson, if you guys would be interested. You guys just go ahead and add me directly on Facebook if you want. So it would be easier to contact you guys. Dave A. Corman finds me. And of course, there's all those other options for you to get in touch with us if you want. Yeah, so, and, I'm sure we'll do some other random stuff as well, just to keep, busy. It's definitely been a fun season. It's definitely been fun doing this with you.
How do you feel, just ballpark, about this season? From where we felt when we recorded episode 0. We can, of course, get into detail next week, but, just your average feeling right now. Do you feel satisfied?
I think I am pretty satisfied. I was pretty skeptical coming into this new series. I didn't know. I thought I was concerned it might just be a straight up action adventure series, that we wouldn't have the heart that the original had.
Yeah. And
that we would just be doing bank heists every other week. And for the most part, that was not the case.
Yeah. After that pilot, I was concerned.
Yeah.
It's gonna be on the pretty low end of that list of mine.
Yeah, definitely. I'm almost thinking we shouldn't even consider that in the rankings because I think it's definitely.
But I agree. I feel like I enjoyed the season. I'm looking forward to more of it, and I think it holds its own. I think it's a worthwhile show to watch. You
said you wanted more callbacks to the original, and I'm all for that. But
yeah, of course I want that.
Right. I also think that the series stands well enough on its own.
Yeah.
I think Raymond Lee is an outstanding lead.
I think all of our actors have proven to do an amazing job.
And I wasn't thrilled with all of them at the beginning. But I've really grown to love
I think that everyone's found their footing. I think all of the characters are growing into nice, round characters. Sometimes, we're getting all that background and you're like, why do we care? But I feel like it's going somewhere. I feel like they all have a place here.
Absolutely. So yeah, all in all, I think I'm pretty satisfied with the season. I'm excited to see more because I, the first half of the season, there's a noticeable uptick in quality in the second half.
Yeah.
And we do things that we weren't necessarily doing as well in the first half.
Right.
Way better in the second half. Like the way we talked about the project scenes and how they mixed in. I wasn't necessarily thrilled with the project scenes in the first half.
We got a much better balance, I think, both in time spent and in relevancy.
Like, there were a lot of people who said that they don't like the project scenes and just would like to focus on the leap. And I think that's a legit criticism over some of the other criticisms that you level at the show.
Yeah, which we're not going to acknowledge.
Address, yes, no. I'm done talking to that particular crowd unless they have something relevant to say, and they don't. But yeah, that's one of the legit criticisms, and I think they kind of course-corrected in the back half of the season.
Like, I'm going to say third of the season, did a phenomenal job of really tweaking the way that balance worked.
We were on a hell of a winning streak for a while, too. Like, episode after episode was good to great.
Yeah.
Up until, I'd say, the Ben Song for the Defense, which
and
is
you know
a weaker
what?
episode.
A lot of people love that episode and said it's one of their favorites. So,
yeah,
I think they did great things.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm real curious to see how your and mine lists differ.
Yeah.
I think they'll be fairly similar.
Yeah,
differ in a few particular episodes.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, all in all, I feel pretty good about season 1. Any other things that you should talk about?
I think it's a good place to close it.
All right. We would like to hear from you. What did you think of the episode? What did you think of this podcast? Stacie can be reached at...
I can be reached on Twitter at TVN Coupon Talk.
If you like this video and want to support the channel, there are a number of ways to do so. You can follow me on Twitter at Core Productions. You can join my Core Productions Facebook page. You can join Stacie's Quantum Leap group. You can buy me a coffee, which is a new way to support content creators such as myself. You can buy something from the Core Productions store on Zazzle. And of course, you can like, share, and comment on this video, as well as subscribing to this channel. This is Dave and Stacie from Core Productions, signing off.